Welcome to the DraftKings Reignmakers PGA Championship preview show. A lot of words. As always at Best First Golf, I'm your host, John Daigle, joined today because we need to be a trio by two very special individuals. First up, I don't even know where to begin, so I guess I'll say co-founder of Fantasy Labs, lucky trader, unabated with the great Rufus Peabody and Captain Jack, so many other things, including investor at Established the Run, our friends over there. It is none other than the great Peter Jennings, CSU Ram. Pete, how's it going, buddy?
Doing great. Daigle, that was quite the introduction. Thanks for it, and excited to chat some golf. We have another major here, so I'm stoked for it.
Fortunately, you've accomplished enough now to also unattach yourself from Amari Cooper. So, you are that far away at least. Otherwise, you're still just the Amari Cooper guy. So, I'm proud of you.
Well, I was still maybe a little bit the Amari Cooper guy. Lots of money won and lost on him. More lost, but glad there's some other stuff out there other than just Amari Cooper.
You also may recognize this third individual from the Bet Golf DFS show. He is the co-host of the Back Nine Bets podcast, the Model Maniac on Twitter, none other than Byron Lindeque. Byron, how are you doing this evening?
Good, John Daigle. How are you doing this evening? Thank you for a very reasonable introduction after Peter's there. I'm waiting one day when I get a
started with you. Sorry.
Peter. Then I'll know I've made it, So we'll keep working on grinding, and maybe I have to find my own Amari Cooper, but we'll keep doing our thing.
Well, I'm excited, gentlemen, because it's not only DraftKings Reignmakers and DFS, it is also a major, which I always get very, very excited for. And I want to begin by discussing overall strategies for everyone who may be dabbling or just trying to get into the idea of doing something else beyond DFS this weekend. And so, Pete, I'm curious about what big picture strategies you've taken so far with DraftKings Reignmakers, understanding that 5-golfer lineup, and more importantly, when we're discussing big picture game strategy, everyone can kind of buy into the best lineup, what they perceive to be optimal. And so that's when, to me, it becomes a board game for adults. And that's why I enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of game theory in Reignmakers, which is a lot of fun. It's not, in football, there are certain stacks that only certain people could have at certain tiers. And obviously there's still, some things that you have to be cognizant of. It's not as much that game as more of a game theory game. So I think understanding how you can build a portfolio is what I'm most excited about.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be playing DFS, there's Reignmakers, there's betting. And I'm trying to think about it from a holistic standpoint and where I can get value within each of the markets. So love Reignmakers for that. I also think it's a more simple game. People can come in, and this could be their first week, and I think they can do well. So it should be a lot of fun. I do think game theory is really important. There's certain combinations of players I think you should be really thoughtful about putting together. And we'll get into some golfers that, I think show some value and maybe contrarian as well. And excited to chat about it.
We will definitely get into a lot of names to both be high on and fade for everyone. Byron, I also know at the Model Maniac on, like I said, your Twitter, you have it posted right now. You actually have a Reignmakers model in which you track pricing for. And I actually always read it every Tuesday morning to see who I'm ahead or behind of or where the market has gone over the past month and 7 days. So what are your thoughts on strategies and what have you had success with so far?
Yeah, I've had some good, boring blue chip success in playing those bankroll builders with some studs like Sungjae Im and Tony Finau kind of just being the core pieces of those kind of things. I know they don't really have the greatest upside in these big events, but they typically T20 for you and always make the cut. Very minimal exposure there on the investment side of things, but they can still provide some really good results. So they've done well, but they've kind of gone from the rare market that's only $50 for a payout now versus the 100 that they were doing, which I'm a little disappointed in. So I think, unfortunately, I'm going to be having to go into the 150 max or the single entries with those guys now and kind of avoid the 50 payout. But it's been fun. I had a lot of Scotty and Rahm, which has been really, beneficial in these majors and big events.
Is there, Pete, as I try to get more information from you when you say you want to build a portfolio with Reignmakers, is there a particular range of ownership you try to target, whether it be the cards you already own or from the secondary marketplace? Because, for instance, like Matthew Wiley, the great Matt Wiley, couldn't make it tonight. I also invited him because I'm always excited to pick his brain. But I know he had success early on, even this year in PGA Reignmakers, because he was basically understanding what the optimal lineup was and then also knowing that golf is for better or worse, very volatile, kind of playing the third or fourth best lineup instead, especially in these multi-entry tournaments. So how do you then diversify when you discuss that?
I think you just get a little bit off the board. Obviously, when you look at the betting market and kind of just how this sets up, you have to make decisions around Scotty and Rahm. And certainly you can play these guys. I think it makes sense to play at least one. But you want to be thoughtful about the rest of your lineup. And I think a lot of people have similar combos. I'm actually interested to kind of get your guys' perspective on some of these players who have moved. Initially, like Jason Day, who won last week, I thought was someone that you could play that has quite a bit of equity. May not be super popular in certain formats. But now after the win, he could be more popular. Same thing with like an Adam Scott, who's really moving up, who's a cheaper play. But most of the time, a lot of people are just stacking these big names. Cameron Young's getting a lot of steam kind of across the industry. I think he'll be popular in DFS. I think certainly he'll be popular in Reignmakers. So yeah, I think you have to kind of figure out where you want to make stands. And sometimes, especially if you're building a portfolio, like I mentioned, you might be able to go heavy on a player in Reignmakers and then not go as heavy in DFS. We're obviously still early in the week. I'll be interested to see kind of ownership projections in DFS, but that's what I'm talking about when making a portfolio. Maybe I'm heavy on someone in Reignmakers and not so much in DFS. Maybe there's betting value that I've had, like if you had futures on Day or Adam Scott or something like that, who's moved a lot in the betting markets. That'd be a great diversification. So that's how I'm thinking about it, and really excited to kind of just see how the market moves. We've already seen some matchups move a little bit this week, and I think Reignmakers, you definitely have to be cognizant of the optimal lineups and some of the one-offs or two-offs of those optimals that'll be really popular.
In that case, Byron, I'm going to kick it to you since you are the one with the model here in pricing. And ahead of the Masters, for example, like I bought a Jon Rahm card from the marketplace, not necessarily because I thought he would win. I got lucky in that aspect, but because I looked ahead and saw the Mexico tour. And as we know, historically, that tour has a significantly weaker field, but Jon Rahm had already entered it. So logically, although his card was perceived as expensive on the marketplace, it was, as it is now with Scotty Scheffler, top 2 in that range. I figured it was actually maybe the lowest point we were going to get him if he competed at the Masters. And then we were also going to get him from another win later on in Mexico, which he got second, but that's okay. And so I think this week offers a similar opportunity since there are 2 majors within a month of each other. So I'm curious then, Byron, to get your thoughts on who are we trying to get ahead of right now, in your opinion?
It's a very random name, but Brendan Todd is very affordable, and he doesn't necessarily grade out the best here, going into the major. But if you just kind of almost just bench him and try not let him ruin a lineup or anything, or just throw him in a scrappy lineup to win some cards, he's had 2 top 10s at the Charles Schwab Challenge. I haven't said that out loud in a long while, but he's crushed it around there, and it makes a lot of sense. He does well there, and he's playing good golf, so he's very affordable. And you can see a guy like that's priced double because he's like $12, $13 right now in the rare market. So people like to do the course history thing in the Reignmaker market in particular.
I also, Pete, will throw out, and DFS, I'm actually starting to get worried because already on a Monday night, I've heard a lot of people mention Russell Henley, but given how much he can differentiate from everyone paying up for the top heavy golfers, as you mentioned, I actually thought I may still be coming in under the field or over the field, but they won't own him as much on Russell Henley for Reignmakers, given that 4 T20 finishes in a row, including that T4 at Augusta recently, the most accurate driver in this field for good drive percentage in the last 3 months as well. So he seems to be hitting his stride right now for this course that not only requires length, but also requires carry distance, which he's top 15 at among this field. And then we've already all seen the Dan Rappaport drop a ball in the 3-inch rough video where the rough is going to be so penal this weekend. So those are 2 names for you. Who else do you have in mind?
Yeah, Russell Henley is interesting. I really need him. I have a lot of Russell Henley that advanced in some of the Underdog best ball contests. That's another thing, just for a little bit of alpha. Underdog has that Albatross. It's a $10 best ball tournament for the remaining 3 majors. So that's another way, just like another format where you can try to find, potential edges and diversify your portfolio. So Henley is someone I'm still pretty high on. We're pretty high on him for the next 3 majors. He's had great form. He's a streaky golfer in general. And yeah, the driving is really something that's become a big part of his game, and it's super impressive. That's the most predictive stat in golf, by the way. Rufus Peabody talks a lot about that, how, obviously everyone has the same situation. They're all teeing off in the same place. It's probably the most predictive, or it is the most predictive stat in golf, is just total driving. So Russell Henley being really strong in that stat, and his accuracy in particular, has been really impressive. So I like him a lot. Unfortunately, the market's moving. I expect him to be really popular in DFS at 7,300. So with you there, you get a little bit farther down, kind of in like the above Henley, but farther off like the main superstars. Someone who's really starting to play well, who I think sets up pretty decently for this course, who might be steaming a bit, is Tyrrell Hatton. Specifically in DFS, he's really, really cheap. He's 8,500. He is next to Matthew Fitzpatrick, who I think will soak up some ownership, but some guys ahead of him, I think, will falter down. And he's been great. He finished third at the Wells Fargo, fifth last week, really coming into form. And I think that's someone that you can look at in Reignmakers as well, that has some interest. I'd be curious to hear your perspective, Byron. I know his price has moved. Adam Scott, Day, Hatton, these guys all moved in price, but curious your perspective there.
Yeah, I think you're getting a lot of good stuff from Tyrrell, because I was looking at the CSC, I'll call it, because I'm not going to butcher that name again. But next week out of the PGA, we're going to go to that one, and he's a great fit around that course again. So you're going to just get multiple events from him that's just providing you with massive utility. And I think, that price, if you got in on the ground level, you're in good shape. But, I think you can still buy in now and still get some really good production from Tyrrell. I think it's a great play.
I also have been thinking a lot about Matt Fitzpatrick's card, and I happen to have one already. But if I did not, I think I would go purchase one, honestly. Just given if you look at similar course comps with long penalizing rough and tougher courses in general with long approach shot, since we know a lot of these approach shots, since players are forced to club down, are going to be from 200 plus yards out. Like Fitzpatrick, it's Russell Henley, who's 10th overall the last 5 seasons in these tough courses that I'm discussing. It is Fitzpatrick who's 11th overall, though. He's right there on longer approach shots. Also picks his game up historically, we've seen in majors. And so I think he's one of those better players who may people not even see coming, honestly, as he gets overlooked for all the other bigger names, despite having that recent win in competition at RBC Heritage. So, yeah, I like Matthew Fitzpatrick a lot this weekend as well.
Yeah, I mentioned him next to Hatton. I like both those golfers a lot. And one thing with Fitzpatrick that's really relevant, if you look at his game log, obviously he's had 3 great performances before, but he was dealing with that neck injury. And it's always hard with golf injuries. Like, how much should you weight some of the performances where that maybe they're injured? Someone like Hideki Matsuyama, you're always having to figure out how to kind of weigh the rounds, and maybe it's just the status quo with him. He's always seems to be hurt. But Fitzpatrick definitely mentioned the neck thing, and you could see it in some of his stats. He really gained a lot of distance over the last couple of years, and that faltered just a little bit with the neck. And, everyone saw him with the RBC Heritage. That was an incredible performance, but I agree with you. I think he sets up super well, and he's definitely a high pedigree golfer. In DFS, he's like 12 or 13th price, somewhere in that range, maybe a little bit farther down. He's below Hatton, maybe 15, 16. And he's going in the top 10 in underdog for the next 3 majors. And then in the betting markets, he's kind of, ahead of those marks too. He's plus 3,650 over on Bookmaker. That's kind of similar to Victor Hovland, similar to Tyrrell Hatton, similar to Spieth, who we'll see if he plays, similar to Cam Young. So I think that's a really good price over in DFS. And I think purchasing another Reignmakers card could make a lot of sense too, because he could be really strong, especially knowing that he's healthy now.
DFS is also going to be a very interesting conversation this week, just because if you recall, obviously the last major for the Masters, really the overarching theme, if you look back to it, was the live players being underpriced. And basically all of them like outperforming the field. They were amazing considering their prices. But now we have, and this is Reignmakers, of course, talk about DFS, but now we have like Koepka 10-1. Like Bryson DeChambeau is really the only one who kind of got left behind, even though this course kind of does make out well for him. So I'm also excited to talk about DFS later this week. You mentioned, though, Pete, Jason Day. And that's actually the name I was thinking of when I thought about the market hitting its peak. And that's why we're going to go to Byron first here, because Byron, I'm curious what you're seeing on the opposite end of that spectrum, like the player or two of them that are currently being overvalued. And it's not that I think Jason Day is going to miss the cut in back-to-back majors or whatever. I just think after the win that, of course, his price surged. And so maybe it isn't the time anymore to get in on it.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you look at what he was doing leading up to this win, it was almost inevitable.
He's playing awesome. Yeah.
You know, like it seems like what he's doing is very sustainable. And if you take a look at the top of this board, there's not a lot of good bent grass putters, man, that are, you know, these elite ball strikers like Scotty and company, even Tyrrell going into this week. Very good ball strikers, struggle on the greens a little bit. J Day, that's where he gets different. And that's, I think, why he landed up winning last week, because Scotty couldn't get the ball in the hole when he was on the putting surface, you know, leading the touring green regulation rates, but just making pars. So I think it's very sustainable. I think his price is not nearly as reactionary as we've seen with like Adam Scott and Tyrrell. I don't necessarily see the price moving nearly as much as what those two guys have, yet he just won the tournament, and the other two guys finished inside the top 5, and they're getting treated like they've won. So it's interesting, you know, but I get that he doesn't play a lot either, because maybe the injury is a bit of a concern, but you know, the upside and the consistency is like pretty elite right now.
And just
he's an interesting one. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dale.
No, I was going to say,
go ahead.
Just to help out people, I was going to give them per Ron Kloss, as everyone knows, PGA Splits 101, top 3 bent grass green putters over the last 3 seasons are Justin Rose, number 1 overall, Lucas Herbert, 2nd, and then Christian Bezuidenhout, of course, Byron's fellow South African, at number 3 overall. Go ahead, Pete.
I was going to say, I thought that was really good analysis on Jason Day. And I do think the injuries, or the fear of injuries, he's another one like Mott's that I think people generally are worried about. And he mentioned a little spout of vertigo. We'll see. Obviously, he said he's a little more anxious, and his expectations are because he's just playing so well. And when he's healthy, he's amazing. And I think he knows his game's at a really high point right now. And I really hope to see him compete and win another major. I mean, I think everyone's rooting for Jason Day. It's really cool to see him win on Mother's Day. And yeah, I think Byron made a really good point. He's capable of being a great ball striker. He's been a great ball striker many times throughout his career. He's shown really good form, but around the greens and on the greens, that's what's really special about Jason Day. Multiple times throughout his career, especially when he was world number 1, he's right there as the best putter in the world. So I really like that. And the bent grass comment is right on.
Is there anyone else, Pete, on that expensive end of Reignmakers, a golfer we know will be over rostered just because of their name value, if anything, that you are considering fading right now, knowing that it's Monday night, a lot can change? Because yes, at least right now, I think the optimal lineup has already dwindled down to 10 to 12 players for a lot of people in terms of going to the marketplace and maybe buying a couple of these guys.
Yeah, the guy that I've kind of consistently been a little lower on than the rest of the market, and he does have a great pedigree, but just hasn't quite been the same golfer this year, is Colin Morikawa. There's a lot to like about Colin Morikawa. He's historically been a very accurate driver of the golf ball. Obviously, everyone knows his ball striking with his irons and his wedges, but just hasn't been as crisp, and he's still priced kind of in the market, DFS, everywhere, as a really premier player. And he certainly could be. He could come out and win this thing again. It wouldn't be shocking, but I like a lot of guys below him in price. I think Finau and DJ and Sungjae, Hovland, even Jason Day, who we just talked about, Matthew Fitzpatrick, are all right in that tier, and they're just cheaper than him. So I'm not super high on Colin Morikawa. He's obviously a great player. He could go out and win. There's variance in golf, and at any point in time, he can really find it. But if I had to pick one of the studs that I'm kind of short this week, Morikawa is the guy that stands out.
And knowing that these are the 4th smallest greens on tour, I am still debating internally how much I should weigh around the green play, even over bent grass putting. Thinking that a lot of these, knowing that as I mentioned earlier, getting a long approach shots, that around the green play is going to be so important this weekend. So that's what I keep coming back to as well. We're about to get out of here, though. I want to give everyone a quick bonus answer, though, because I do want to know. I'm not going to squeeze all the information out of you two. You two have everything as it is. So I want to just ask, Byron, beginning with you, who is one player that you know, at least right now on a Monday night, you will be overweight on? And you can interpret that however you want. Maybe the market's lower on him. Maybe you just think everyone's going to under-roster him, giving recent play. It can be a number of factors to choose from.
I'm going to say Patrick Cantley. I know he's not necessarily he's kind of popular. I think there's a lot to like about him, but I love what he can get up to on the upside of things. And I feel like his price is still a little disrespected for the kind of fantasy production that he puts out on a weekly basis. The guy's just pretty intense, and he gives you that long run into the Tour Championship. If you're going to be looking at a long-term utility from a card, the guy's one of the favorites most likely to win the Tour Championship. So, or at least the top 5. I don't know. There must be odds out there. I would imagine it's pretty close. So I like his long run, and putting on bent grass this week at these events is just too good.
Pete, same question.
Yeah, I'll go with someone that I think hopefully will start getting the recognition he deserves. He always talks about his sticks doing the talking. Not the flashiest guy, but similar to Cantlay. It's perfect that they partner together. But Xander Schauffele is starting to get some betting respect. But I think, when you talk to just the average person off the street, they're going to mention Scotty, Rahm, Rory, maybe Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa. Xander doesn't come up as much as he should. And to me, he's, in the betting markets, in some places, he's already ahead of Rory. His current form is awesome. Really no holes in Xander's game. Easily could have won the Wells Fargo Championship. I think he's as good of a play as anyone this week. And he's significantly cheaper in a lot of these markets, even though his betting price is starting to come up. In DFS, he's the 6th most expensive player. And he's not getting drafted, I think, appropriately. So I like the Cantlay call, and I like Xander. I think those two teammates can play really well this week.
I'm going to cheat and mention someone I already mentioned and say Matthew Fitzpatrick, because again, very high on him this week. And then if you want I hate myself pick, I'd probably be overweight on the field on Brian Harman. Byron, don't laugh. I don't mean to keep going back to him in majors, but I think the form may be in tune, especially because his card, as you've seen, it's right now you can get it at its cheapest point. So I don't mind having him again.
And next
Byron,
week, dude, Brian Harman next week, buddy. That's
the evergreen retweet is Brian Harman next week. Yes. Byron, tell everyone what else you have coming out for you this upcoming week.
Yes, at rotoballer.com. That's where everything Reignmaker, DFS, betting, podcasts, all that jazz is going to be there. At the Model Maniac, that's pretty much the hub for all of those articles too. And then Back 9 Bets on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. That's all where I get all my stuff. And it's a fun week, man. I can't wait for this PGA.
Pete, I know you'll be on a couple more shows. What else do you have going on this week?
Yeah, I'm actually heading out for a member guest. So I'll be playing golf, watching golf, which will be great. I'm excited to see the projections come out for ETR. We've done some articles on Lucky Trader as well. It's really cool to see the bulk entry template come out for DraftKings. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on, a lot of big prizes, and it should be a really fun week. I'm excited to see the next major champion in 2023.
Some more info on both NFTs and DraftKings Reignmakers at both BetSports Golf and Lucky Trader. Thanks again for everyone joining. Good luck this week. We will see you next time.